Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Bible in 1 year with the Preacher's Husband. Today we're talking about Exodus chapter 7, 8, and 9. In chapter 7 we find Moses and Aaron. The Lord's speaking to Moses first and he says, "See, I made you like God to Pharaoh, and Aaron, your brother, will be your prophet. You must say whatever I command you. Then Aaron, your brother, must declare it to Pharaoh so that he will let the Israelites go from this land. But I'm going to harden Pharaoh's heart and multiply my signs and wonders in the land of Egypt. Pharaoh will not listen to you, but I will put my hand into Egypt and bring the military divisions of my people, the Israelites, out of the land of Egypt by great acts of judgment." Now, why would God want to harden Pharaoh's heart? When I first read this, I thought, well, maybe he wasn't really wanting to harden Pharaoh's heart. Maybe it was his actions against Pharaoh that was hardening Pharaoh's heart. Maybe he wasn't just trying to harden Pharaoh, but he really was. He wanted this to stick. He wanted this to make a huge impression upon the Egyptians to the point where Pharaoh and the Egyptians wouldn't want anything to do with the Israelites at all from that point forward after all this is said and done. So God had a plan from the start. And basically, he promised to do this. And like I said, that word that they use in the Bible describes oppression or difficulties. Basically, since Pharaoh had made the lives so difficult and hard for the slaves that in return, God's going to harden his heart. That way it will be very clear when the Israelites left Egypt. It was not because of the persuasiveness of Moses or because of the wise leadership of Pharaoh, but it was because God wanted everybody, both in Egypt and the Israelites, to know that he is God. So that's why he's doing this. So they go before Pharaoh, and Aaron did what he says. Aaron throws down his rod, not Moses. Aaron throws down his rod. His rod becomes a serpent, a snake. And Pharaoh immediately calls his magicians in and says, "Look at this." And his magicians come and throw their staffs down, and they become snakes too. But the difference is the rod of Aaron that became a snake devoured the other magician's snake. And that's something they hadn't seen. But Pharaoh's heart was hard. He didn't care. So he said, "I'm not going to set those people free." So guess what happens? God sets forth 10 plagues upon Egypt. And the first plague was this. The first plague turned out to be water. It was water turned into blood. So basically he told Moses, go stick your staff in the water and the water's going to become blood. So Moses did that, and it happened, and there was no water to drink in Egypt for anyone. But Pharaoh, he was not to be deterred. He called his magicians and his occult leaders in, and they performed some of their magic, their occult magic that they had, and they were able to perform the same thing. They put their staves into some water and turned it red as well, turned it to blood. So Pharaoh was like, "Oh, this is just parlor tricks. So I'm not going to do it. I'm not setting them free." The second plague that the Lord set loose on Egypt was that of frogs. And basically, he told Moses to go stick your rod in the water and call the frogs to come forth on land. And they did. The frogs were everywhere. And then when the frogs covered the entire land, God told Moses that they're all going to die and they're going to stink up the joint. And they did. They all died, and they were just laying around everywhere. And they were scooping up these big buckets of frogs and wheelbarrows full of frogs, just trying to get all these dead frogs. And the place reeked. It was horrible. But Pharaoh's heart was still hardened, and he said, "No, I'm not going to set the people free." So the Lord set forth the third plague, and that third plague was either gnats or lice, depending on what version of the Bible that you read. And when he did this, Pharaoh immediately saw all this happening, and he calls his magicians together, and his magicians tried to duplicate this, but they said, "We can't do this. This is beyond our powers. This is a miracle." And what they called it, they said, "This is the finger of God." But Pharaoh just brushed him off. It was like, "No, it's not. There's no way." And Pharaoh's heart was hardened. Then the fourth plague was a swarm of flies. So the flies swarmed, and of course the magicians couldn't do this either. Flies were everywhere. And Moses basically went to Pharaoh and said, hey, you let my people go, and I'll tell God to make this all go away. And Pharaoh's like, okay, go make it all go away. So Moses goes and makes it all go away, but Pharaoh's like, I'm not going to let him go. I'm still not going to let him go. So then the 5th plague showed up, the disease on livestock. Essentially what happened here is God made all of the livestock in Egypt diseased, and they would all die off. But the thing about it is, they all died except for the ones that were owned by the Israelites in Goshen. So the Israelites, all of their livestock stayed alive, but all the Egyptians' livestock died off. And Pharaoh's heart was still hardened. He was just like, nope, not letting them go. 6th plague, boils all over people's bodies. And basically Pharaoh did the same thing. He's like, you know what, you make this go away, sure, I'll let him go. But Moses, even the magicians had boils on them, and they couldn't even stand before Pharaoh because their boils were so bad. But Pharaoh's heart was hardened again. He did not set the people free. The 7th plague was hail. Some people say hail and fire. Some versions say hail and lightning. Mine said hail and lightning. Of course, with the lightning strikes, that would catch things on fire. So that's where the fire part comes from, is lightning catching things on fire. So hail and thunder, or hail and lightning, as they say. Same thing happened there. Everything was devastated. The hail was so bad that it destroyed everything except the Israelites in Goshen. And that ends our chapters 7, 8, and 9. Now, if there's anything in this that I missed that you want to talk about, feel free to put it down in the comment section. I know there's quite a few things in here, a lot of little nuggets and tidbits that I skipped over, but if you want to put some of that in the comment section, let's talk about it there, we can do so. And I hope to see you next time. Tomorrow we're going to be reading chapters 10, 11, and 12, and we're going to see what happens with the rest of these plagues. So I will see you tomorrow. Be sure to click the like button, the subscribe button, and click the little jingle bell so you can get notified the next time I upload a video. So we'll see you tomorrow.